So we're going to call this meeting to order. Any public comment out there before we review our minutes of May 28th meeting? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hearing no public comment, we're going to continue. If you'd like to comment, just raise your hand. So reviewing the minutes of the meeting that was held May 28th, 2024. Any additional additions, corrections, deletions?
I did correct, so I had on it was the 29th. So I
Thank
did
you.
correct the date. I think that was the only other thing, so.
Awesome. If so, if no one else has any other, could we have a motion?
I move.
Any second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I have to abstain because I was.
Oh, that was here. Thank you.
And I
Thank
don't
you,
know if I'm
Chris.
supposed to
doesn't
say
matter.
yay or nay when I wrote it down.
Oh, you
That's
can.
why
I
okay.
And then next meeting to be scheduled. And I just want to throw out there, it is summer.
Mhm.
Do we want to kind of take a little break? And I'm not saying a huge break, but maybe a little break. I am kind of feeling,
I think my proposal is we gave a heads up, or we were told a heads up that Virginia Clark may be attending, and my thought is we wait to see what she has to say before deciding when our next meeting is and
Oh,
when.
Yeah,
good
I
idea.
mean, if
Good
we
idea.
have to do something
Good idea.
quick, if we can, then we.
Yeah, I don't anticipate it.
I don't anticipate it being actionable, just to say, okay, if she's gonna meet again and we want to talk briefly, or if there's
Okay.
gonna be nothing, then we wait it longer.
So how about
I
if
don't
we
anticipate
move
it being groundbreaking.
next meeting to be scheduled down to other items for discussion? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All right, so moving right on, June 3rd presentation to the select board. So I guess I'll just tell you, I'd like to go around the table and have everyone's thoughts. I think Kendra did an incredible job, and thank you and kudos, Kendra, to the PowerPoint presentation. But I almost felt like we didn't even need to do it. It was almost like a done deal, but I honestly, I didn't get the feeling like it was a done deal until we got to the meeting.
Mhm.
And then it was like, okay, whatever, let's go. And, Kendra pointed out something the other day that was pretty telling, and I should have thought that, but she said, well, didn't you think it was weird? They kept cutting our time back and cutting our time back.
Mm.
So, and that's true. So, but I think it went great. I've seen quite a few people who were either on Zoom and they said, you guys did a fantastic job. It was great. And, and I feel bad that, you didn't get to present your parts and other parts, but I mean, I think everything went really well. I was very encouraged with the select board, and maybe they've seen and heard too much from us.
I think that's what I think I would say is that we've pre-presented a lot of the parts of that park. And so I think that, yes, we may feel that way, that it wasn't really necessary. It was like for action, just to get the action, but I don't think that we should take it as that for the volunteer screen. I don't think we can't think about it like that on this park, because there's been a lot less meetings about it, a lot less public updates, because we just don't know what we can do.
Right. And I sent a note to Tess the next day and said, hope you didn't feel bad about getting cut off, but it's the final result that mattered, And
Totally,
so
totally.
that's why I just said, yeah, I thought the questions were right. The comments we heard, and he answered them.
And even
But he answered them all.
I am so glad they understood, in keeping with All Round Church Green.
Mm.
And I'm so glad they understood that part, that we don't want to put something new and modern in there.
Mhm.
And so that made me feel really good that they got what we were trying to accomplish at the All Round Church Green, to keep it authentic, to keep it matching, to keep it looking older,
Mhm.
even though it's new equipment. So
Mhm.
I was excited that they got that.
Mhm.
Yes.
I thought it went okay, I don't know what I was expecting. I think when I did my speech, I thought there are a lot of people who I haven't seen before here. in retrospect, had I known that we had a good shot at getting it, my speech would have been a lot shorter.
Yeah, I think they were just interested really in the basics.
Yep,
They-
bottom line.
We'd been there enough that they knew what we were going to propose. We hadn't showed them any numbers, but once, that's what we were interested, that's what they were interested in. And they know that, Volunteers Green is in limbo.
Yep.
And understood that we wanted to move forward on the other two things, the other two parks.
The only thing I wanted to mention, and maybe we should put it in the notes. The presentation on the PowerPoint, I'm keeping mine because I think it's such a fantastic document. There was one little tiny typo. It said quotes for the pickleball courts was 140. It was a typo. It was actually 114,000.
The number we used, and that's what's in the total.
And that's what's in the total. So the bottom line didn't change.
Okay.
But so just, Kendra pointed that out,
To Josh when we-
Wednesday.
So we'll
at
talk
a
about that
meeting.
in a second.
So, but we just want to make sure that you update your copies at home, just for record keeping purposes. All my little notes on it.
I'm gonna trust that
Okay.
the master will be updated.
It already is. And she's the one who found it and told everybody.
If anybody doesn't have anything else on the June 3rd meeting, then we can talk about our meeting with
Right.
Josh and Duncan. Fran and Denise and I met with Josh, and Duncan didn't come in the end. But we presented him with a pared down Excel that just had the things that we proposed, and a pared down PDF that had all of the quotes for the things that we were proposing, all bookmarked and labeled out, and went through each one and what they meant, and which ones had the three quotes and which ones would need additional searching, such as the cement concept, and went through each park. We started with Round Church, and that he was on board with the bench and the picnic table, and we'll be working on getting those ordered because they have a 7 to 9 week lead time.
Yep. Great.
He'll work, Fran will be meeting with mow and maintain about the grass and getting that underway.
That was actually a date for, June 26th, they're actually gonna,
Perfect.
do the land.
That park looks so fantastic already.
They're gonna fix the places where the stumps were taken out. They're gonna add supposedly dirt where there are sinkholes, but also add dirt closer to the Round Church where
Mhm.
there really isn't much grass.
Right, in that area where the grass.
So they're all, mow and maintain is all set to go
Perfect.
for that. And talk about the concrete
Concrete, yep.
pads. The quotes you got, DNA, what was that, Mark, that for the name Gary gave?
It's the name Gary gave.
Okay,
Who
so.
poured the pads before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they have
We
that.
have The
He
quote.
had the,
so-
it had the name of his company, but
But
she was
not-
trying to think. of the name.
Oh, okay.
So, but is that Mark
It was-
Frost? I think
I'll look, yeah, I'll look up his
Okay.
email, but I'm sure that's.
So they're gonna
Can't
talk
remember.
to them again, but they're also, because Pete is gonna be having some concrete work done up on Route 2 for the sidewalks. They're
Mhm.
also, gonna talk to that contractor about it and get a quote just for the Round Church.
Got it.
Because the quote you got, was for all the concrete pads.
It was separate. There
Mine was for all. Mine
Well,
was for
no,
all.
hers
work at
was both.
Round.
I had,
So
yeah,
the
he broke
concern
them
is-
into Round
Oh,
Church
okay.
and.
Right.
No, it didn't matter
Volunteer Green.
if we just said for now, just do Round Church.
Oh, yeah.
that goes.
Yeah.
So,
So
but-
Josh was just gonna check and make sure with
Yeah.
that.
and, so
Couple other
they're
quotes.
gonna talk to whoever the contractor is that's gonna be working with
Yep.
Pete.
Right.
And then the question was, do there need to be bolts in the concrete, or not? And they don't have to be.
Mm.
It's easier not to have them in.
Mm.
It's easier to pour the concrete, put the 6-inch concrete pad, and then mount the, picnic table and the
Right,
bench. So
cool.
you and I need to go over and think about where we really want
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And I asked Gary if he would either join us, or if we think where we want them, then I would meet with him and Gary and really Jean and get their thoughts on
And
that, because we're trying
So
to,
the intent is to have those concrete pads poured sooner rather than later, and they can wait for the benches,
Mhm.
because if, especially if it goes along with the concrete job that's already going on, it could save money to do it all at the same time.
I think it would behoove us if we did get those marked out,
But
just so if they call
Doing
quick
them
and say.
separately than Brown's courts,
Yeah.
because with Brown's courts, theirs we want to do after the pickleball court, so we'll get to the plan, the
Yeah.
discussion on
Yeah.
that, but to do them as
Yeah.
those two pieces as separate projects, but maybe alongside another project. or
So
whatever.
just
And
a
then-
couple notes I wrote down. We're gonna talk about more questions. So couple notes I wrote down, and one thing I wanted to share with everyone, and Kendra was there and saw it for her own eyes. Mary Claire Carroll sent a text to me and she said, "Thought you might get a chuckle. Tonight there must be a girls softball tournament. There are 50 cars and 2 trucks and 2 motorcycles parked on the field. There are also 2 trucks parked on the street." Kendra, you were there,
Yeah,
correct?
It was a little league coach pitch, and so when we started talking about Brown's Court in our plans, we talked about leaving kind of an overflow opening, so in the image, we have all those ropes around it, but leaving it so that, because it's not normal that there's that many up there, but giving the ability to let people out of the main parking lot and have an overflow area, and then the signage is where we talked about that also. Having that one that you sent say something about it, once you overflow here, if there's no more space, you park up at the school.
But
Even
absolutely
then, I
no
would
parking
encourage
on the
them.
road.
even then I would encourage them first to park,
Yep.
try to get them
Right.
to go up. to
And Fran
Campbell.
had a good point that we would let the coaches know if there was a big event like
Yeah.
that. So they could send a notice out to the parents before they even get there, overflow parking, please.
What was the
It was
event?
the coach pitch baseball game.
It was just a
Like
kid's.
seventh and
baseball-
eighth grader, the eighth-year-olds, 7th and 8th.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
just,
I'm surprised they didn't have it at Volunteers Green where.
most of their games have been, but they had kind of an alternating
kids.
one, so we had only one this year. And
Hmm.
it was that one.
Isn't that crazy?
That's right.
And then the other thing we talked about, and we kind of put Fran on the spot, would she be the clerk of the works for the all-around church and the historical society, kind of, being the overlook? And she said she would if Jean would help her. So Jean.
And yes, I would, and I wanted to update you on the bench thing too. So did you look at the bench that I scrubbed?
No, I have not had a
Okay,
chance.
well, so 2 weeks ago, Kent Riggs and I went and scrubbed the bench that Megan had
Mhm.
sandblasted. And I did a whole bunch of research on the iPay wood and learned all about what to do. So the bench turned out great.
Really?
It took it. we-
So which,
took a couple
tell me
hours.
which bench.
The one that's closest to the church that had the worst lichen on it in the beginning.
Okay, so it would be where the volunteers. If I came out of the church and I'm guiding, I would sit.
That first left.
Okay,
right to
so-
the left.
That, I guess I did see that, but then I was waiting for the next step.
Well, so that's what I was gonna say. So I think the smart thing would be to scrub them all first, and that it took like 3 or 4 hours to keep
Yeah.
going over that and
Yep.
we put a solution on and let it sit for 10 minutes and then you scrub it again and then and because you have to have the water. I came up with a system, fill a water can and then water the bench
Oh, yeah.
because there's no water there. So that
Mhm.
I had to go back and get water a couple times too. So for one bench, it's gonna take, that's
Mhm.
I just do one bench a day. And then once they're all scrubbed, then I bought the product the oil. And that was $60 some for the gallon and the gallon, so I
submit?
have that was my question.
Good,
I have
yeah.
the receipt, but I didn't know where
Definitely.
to do that. And because I think that could be done in a day because you have to brush it all on and just wipe it all off.
So you
And
haven't
you
done
can-
that.
I haven't done that because, well,
Well, we
once I
haven't
was,
had the
I was
weather.
gone and you have to have at least 24 hours of dry weather afterwards. So if all the benches are scrubbed, then like the day before you oil them, you just have to go in and wipe them.
You could do
off.
all of them.
And
all in
then
one, and
as
then
soon
let
as
'em all
it
dry.
totally dried, I think it would be easy if I had one other volunteer to help me to brush it on and wipe it off. So that might not happen all 4 until the end of the summer to get the oil part, but I don't think I was so impressed. I was just surprised how well they turned out. And I went back that.
Yeah,
I
you
went
might
back
have
that
to-
Night.
Might
And,
have to just the day before come in and
Yeah,
just
that's
wipe because of the birds.
Oh, absolutely. I went back that night and there was a bird sitting on it. But the two of the volunteers were sitting on the bench and I said, did you notice? You know, so I said,
Oh.
yeah, my clothes aren't getting snagged. So anyhow, I think I figured out the process and I told Fran I'll write it all up for the Historical Society can keep a copy of the maintenance and so can whoever.
Yeah.
has
Well, the
paid.
town should, because
Yeah,
there are benches down here, the
Oh,
same,
mhm.
they're same benches.
yeah.
So could you?
I looked at the bench right here even, right?
Jeannie, could you have that conversation and give that information to Josh along with the invoice?
That's,
And
sure.
he'll take care of
Well,
that.
that's
Put
what I
your
figured. I will
address on
write it
it.
all up with step 1, step 2, step 3. all
Right,
the
and another
research I
thing
did,
that
but
Josh
sure.
wanted, he knows our names, but he wanted our best email contact and our best phone number, because like, if he has a question about the pickleballs, he's gonna go to you. If he's got a question about Old Round Church, he's gonna go to Fran. If he's got a pension about the benches, he may go to you, so he's gonna contact one of us and just say, who do I talk to? I need help quick.
Yeah.
So if you could fill this out.
Yep.
The other thing, just a reminder,
Mhm.
we had potentially three projects over $15,000. Those are the projects that need a sealed bid process.
Mhm.
But as we talked, the only two it looks like that might go out to the sealed bid is the 30 space parking lot and the pickleball courts. Because as he was explaining to us on the ball field, and help me if I misspeak, the clay comes from one contractor.
Mhm.
The something else comes from another one, something else comes from another one. So when we totaled it and lump summed it, but because they're different suppliers, it's not over 15,000. So like he was explaining to us, there's only one guy in Vermont that does clay.
Mhm.
Each is a separate project.
Right, each is a separate project. So right now for the two parks, it looks like we have only two items that have to go to a sealed bid. We told him the highest priority was the pickleball.
Right, so that's the only one that's going out for bid right now
Right.
or soon. Because we need to know timeline on the pickleball to be able to put in the parking lot. And so you
Yeah.
can't go out for bid and say, well, sometime, and then it ends up being next year and it's a different pricing.
Right.
So,
And then he also said, as soon as we know when for sure, and Tess, I'm gonna put you on the spot for a second.
Sure.
Do you think there's any possibility they could do it this fall?
Just judging from how long it took me to get responses, I'm gonna say no.
Do you think that it would be okay, appropriate, just to call and check?
I-
And just
I
say,
think-
well, I think
Yep.
that, I don't know that you want to overstep
Yeah.
and keep reaching out to them if you
Yeah.
want them to bid. Or else
Yeah.
they could get annoyed and be like, I wouldn't want this project, like. They feel like dragged on. I would leave it to the bid. They're gonna say when they think they could do it in their bid process.
Okay.
Which is happening right now, very soon. He's gonna be
Right.
writing it up. So I don't know.
that's
if
what
you want
Josh is doing right now, so we told him that you were
Right, if
the,
he wants to have her
pickleball.
reach out and say that or ask about that. But I don't think for us to reach out at this point makes sense, other than to potentially aggravate.
So
Yeah.
do we just email Josh our preferred telephone number?
You
Uh,
go right
we're
there.
making
around
it-
right
Oh,
here.
okay.
and then I'll just take a picture or I'll just type it up and email it to him.
Yeah.
But he was incredibly impressed with everything he was presented. And there were a couple things that we only had two bids on, like the concrete pad, so he was gonna talk with the guy that's here anyway.
Mhm.
So,
And then, so he's gonna go ahead with that and he can go ahead with some of the softball stuff because those are kind of separate little areas. And then lastly, the parking lot. And then once he knows the timeline on the pickleball, he'll then put the parking lot out for bid. And it may be saying, we're gonna do this parking lot next fall, like, can you put a bid in? And then they adjust their price accordingly for it being.
Yep. The other thing was on the cedar trees.
Mhm.
He wants me to see if I can find a company locally that would, besides supply the cedar trees, would install them.
I like that, and he even recommended calling Acer to see if they would do it.
Yeah, Caitlin it wasn't Josh, it was Caitlin.
Oh, Caitlin.
Had told me. call me.
One clarification we need, unless it's already been clarified and I missed it. I haven't even looked at emails today. Bike rack, it did have a concrete pad under it,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then how about the shed? Did that also have a concrete?
In
I
the,
think it just said gravel pad.
no, I think that your price from DNA
I think,
said
I think so too.
4 bench pads,
Yeah.
1 4 8x4 for the bike rack, and 1 8x8. It was,
For
The
the
bigger
table.
one was for the picnic table,
oh, I forgot about the picnic
picnic
table.
table with the benches.
Okay,
And
so
I-
then yeah, not the shed.
Yeah, no, not the
Not the
shed,
shed.
because we actually talked about the.
The shed was
they were putting
8x8, so the numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we were like, oh.
If they're putting gravel at the parking lot, that maybe they could just build a gravel base for the shed. But if you think it should have a cement pad.
Let's
I mean-
wait and see
I
what
think-
kind
No,
of.
you know what? And we talked
Yeah.
about maybe not the cement pad. I remember we had that discussion.
Yeah.
In case they wanted to lift up the
And move it.
shed and move it somewhere else.
Right.
That, if it had a gravel pad, they could do that. And most sheds have a gravel.
Kendra
pad.
had a great
Also-
idea. I don't know if you can pull it up. So because the bocce is not going in at this point, we thought to keep it open for parking,
Mm.
overflow parking only, that we would put the shed closer to pickleball. How do you feel about that? She's gonna show you visually.
I think we wait and see. I mean, I think that's a good idea, but. I
Right,
think
right,
we-
right.
Movable,
But
so.
just, you need to be thinking about it.
I think the bigger question became with the 2 benches that were gonna be over there and cement pads, for me, more so than the shed. A shed was fairly movable,
Mhm.
but I didn't want to put necessarily cement pads just randomly floating out there
Right,
indefinitely.
and we had 4 benches listed.
Yeah, no,
Right.
Right,
So,
so,
Kendra and I have a different opinion as to
Okay.
what benches you were proposing.
yes, let's have that, we can have that discussion.
I was thinking that the baseball benches were different than the benches for casual people.
They're the same style, but they were backless for the players and with backs on for the,
People.
yeah.
Okay, so
I think it's the
backless,
very same style.
Like,
And that was just talking to Justin, kind of.
like this.
Right there. So those are for the people that are
Yes.
recreating, picnicking, or just
Yes.
taking a rest after they walk.
And then I think it's the very same style, they just don't have a back. I mean, it's the same metal seat.
Mm.
I don't know it's like an open metal,
But like this, kind of.
yeah,
with-
just that,
Without
without
this
the back.
piece
I mean,
here.
it could,
It
but
could
I
have
think
the
that
pri-
was the
well,
price.
it'd
The
be
prices
cheaper
were the
without
same.
back.
Yeah,
The prices we used in the quote were the same for the
okay,
4 and 4,
okay.
but that doesn't mean that.
So
that
were
we-
the 4
Could
with
look up
back?
to see. Well, 4 with a back, because that was for the
That's what the
park.
price
then
And
I
then
didn't have the
4
back,
without a back.
4 without a
But the
back.
prices, all I'm saying is the prices that were used in here
Oh,
were the
Or
same.
8 with backs?
Oh, okay.
Eight
But-
backs, but that
well,
doesn't mean
but
we
it-
have to go with that. I'm
Yeah.
just, that's just the numbers that are in the Excel.
I think
Yeah, I'll
when
see
working
what
with
Josh-
Josh, we really need
Yeah.
to go back, when he's looking at the field and ordering benches, somebody really needs to sit down with him.
And you
Sure.
tell us, yeah, what would be?
Pass it.
And
The-
whether,
He said the benches with backs would be great.
Oh, well,
They
then.
would like
At the
it.
meeting.
but as long as they gotta
but-
fit within the budget.
Yeah,
But that's what's
That's
in the
exactly
price that
in
we
the
already
budget.
have in there. So
Okay.
anything less is a saving,
And then,
Yeah.
which is cool.
we,
I'll take
we
it,
need them installed, and I'm not sure. that
That's what
those
I don't know
prices-
either. I'd have.
You
to-
gave
I-
$1,000 to install
To
those
install.
benches. On top of, like, not including the cement pad benches installed,
Yeah.
those are separate. So,
That was
and there
offered-
wouldn't be cement pads under the players'
Correct.
benches,
Correct.
right.
just
Just-
under the
Correct.
recreation benches.
So there needs to be, or Josh working with you needs to work more, finalize a little bit more
Yeah.
on the benches.
I'd be happy to work with him because, I mean, we didn't really talk about colors, but no
Right.
matter what, I just think it's the picnic table should match the
Oh, I agree.
benches and when I say Josh, it was Justin Mansfield
Yeah.
who said, like, there's one color that they just have in their warehouse. Like, I think they had like tons of green that they just, so there would be no shipping.
Hmm.
If we went with that color. So it's like, okay,
I don't really
there's the
care.
tablecloth. I don't think so either. I just thought some,
Personally, but
some color that matched. I kind of thought bright blue or, red would be cool in the park, but I think whatever if they have a stock in the warehouse.
And we can
I would
save money.
say Yes.
But we weren't gonna order any benches or picnic table again until,
Only Browns Court we weren't.
yeah,
Okay.
because they're different, until the pickleball.
well, no, I think
Well, he
there was
can
a
order the
potential he
ball
might
player.
order them and not install
I think we should
anything,
order them all.
because he's worried
save
about,
how
he wants
the
all of
shipping.
it, as much of it paid for as possible.
This year, he
So-
wants as much.
But I'm not saying he's gonna immediately
for
right
by
now, like he is
December.
the round trip.
He said November 1st. I had said, what are you talking, December 31st? He goes, no, I'd like it all paid for by November 1st, because my understanding, the $550,000 that we have, we want to drain it as much as we can before November 1st, as he said. Then after that, the select board's going to make a motion to allocate that to go into a reserve fund or whatever fund they do for earmarked for
Right.
ARPA funds
But
for
ideally, it just all be
Volunteers Green.
spent. So I don't think in the next like month, he's gonna be ordering these.
Maybe Gene, if
benches
you
and
have
tables,
time
but-
sometime, you would.
Talk to Justin
to
Mansfield.
Because the other
Yeah,
question
talk to
that,
Justin.
That
Yeah,
way, he's,
see if
I
he-
think he's
Jeannie,
just,
the other part of the question that came up was whether we're better off in not installing these like with those cement, or whether these little leg ones.
Mm.
Josh seemed to think that installing them was better, but
I really
I'll leave
like
it
the
over.
ones for the ball players with, that I saw in Arlington.
Mhm.
more like this.
Were really heavy, but they had the legs and you did not have to have anybody do any concrete
yeah.
Mhm.
work. The ones that are, on concrete pads, you put the pad in and then it's more drilling holes, through the cement
There.
to attach them with bolts. And-
So-
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said that for these benches,
Those there you need.
you pour
saw-
the concrete around the bench, I thought.
No, but in order
Or
to,
not.
in order to install those posts, those have to be in concrete.
Got you.
And that is,
That was the
that's
For the
more
bench.
labor intensive.
That was the other part of the
Okay.
question, is when you're
Okay.
talking to Justin, is with the ones on the cement pads. Do you pour the cement wet and put the bench in? Like, how does that all logistically work?
yeah.
And
I'm not
also,
gonna try and guess.
would Justin
How
be
does that
willing
work?
to, was Justin possibly including in his quote, the manual labor to dig the hole and do the concrete work? I
No.
don't think so. Okay. Okay.
I think it said,
But I do know they have a big warehouse, and so even if we ordered them now, he might even store them, you know? I'll ask those
I
questions.
almost would like to get him to Richmond.
I'm just sitting.
And
Well,
where-
depends where
we
you
have
wanna
storage.
store.
That was like,
I, if we pay for them and they're stored there, they're
With him-
probably
with
safer.
Justin's been very, he donated that slide, like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's gonna be fine. if
he's
that-
worked with Pete for 20 years, just keeping the,
good.
that,
So
the
there was
same
lots of
thing,
questions
so-
on how
yeah.
bench install happens and order of events and.
Okay.
The
Sure.
simpler, the better on the,
Right.
Yeah.
who are we getting the bike rack from? Because they
Same.
said,
Him too.
oh, good. So things like that, we
Yeah.
could order now.
Yeah.
And you, I don't know, would you be willing to have a conversation with Josh and find out from Justin, and
Yeah.
then
Of course.
if you need a PO, go to Josh, because Josh wants to get as much paid for before November 1st.
yeah, the order has to come from Josh.
Right,
Yes,
right,
but
but
I can
he
get-
may need a
Figure all the
PO.
details first.
Yeah, exactly. He may need a PO. Who knows what he may need.
And Justin might need to give us a different kind of quote with all these, the installation, the this, the that.
So,
Right.
but
So
to
we'll
go
just
back
find
to
out.
what we were first, with the picture,
Well,
so
Yeah.
the piece that I had said
Oh.
earlier about the parking lot
Mhm.
was just that you would potentially be able to leave some type of outlet here. So then you wouldn't want necessarily this shed right here
Yeah.
and these benches over here. So for now, I think we're holding on whether we're gonna have 4 benches over here or 2. And so you just wouldn't
Mhm.
pour concrete till you know.
Mhm. So the shed could go about right.
The shed, we were talking somewhere
Like
over
in there,
here
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
Well, you want to
Eventually.
keep that walking path.
Oh, yeah.
open.
Yeah.
So it could go on the other side of that. It'd be,
Or, I don't
Could
know
we
about what the
figure
booth
out
actually
Yeah,
said,
it's
like,
good.
or whatever.
Can
Way
we-
on the far, go
can
up
you-
further.
Over
Yeah.
Could
here?
it go, yeah, could it go over there?
As long as it's not in the way
And
of
the
and
the
where's,
path.
we're
Path
still
over
leaving a
there.
walking area.
Yeah, the walking area.
Or the
path.
left corner of
Have
the,
it over here.
yeah, that's where I was thinking right in
Yeah,
there.
but
And
just As
maybe,
long as you still keep your.
and
your
I
wide enough
kind of thought maybe the
space, and
picnic
that's why I was like, oh,
table,
maybe here. I don't know.
I thought to the left of the, about the center to the left of the pickleball court might be a good place for a picnic table, because then it could be for
ball player families or other.
Like over here.
And then
Yeah, sort of.
hypothetically, I was thinking
Maybe.
at the end of the parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
because if it was a handicap person,
Mm.
they could get out of the spaces there and get to that picnic table easily.
Yeah, maybe even switch these and have it be
But
more.
we can talk, you know, we can all talk
Sure.
about that.
Small,
Okay.
small tweaking, but
Okay. we
more
can
the-
figure.
yeah,
just-
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about putting a picnic table to the right
over here.
Yes,
of that
correct.
because of the sewage line.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able, yeah, pour the concrete there. True.
And
Good
to the
point.
left, I'd be,
You have to be careful about it infringing on the ball field.
Yeah.
Right,
That's what-
exactly.
Maybe somewhere like where this bench now is. you
Sure,
switch
that
the
makes
picnic
sense.
Table
Yeah.
and move benches around.
Yep.
But
Okay, we can get those details.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so just, yeah, and so for now, we don't know, if all the trees won't be planted until
Right.
after this is installed.
Yeah, the only
Right.
trees we would plant
This side.
now would be the ones near the box, near the pickleball court.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Do you, just a hypothetical question, go back down to where Jim Oliver's land is right there? Do you, I mean, I don't know, do they like to look at the park and watch the kids? I mean, are we gonna be taking away their view of the park? Should we ask them?
I would ask them.
For what? With what?
For that row of cedar.
So like Jim Carroll.
this row?
House?
I don't think we need to get into that until we even decide on a
Right,
budget.
right, but I'm
So I
saying
don't
when
think we need
do-
to like contemplate it right now.
Yeah, but when we do, I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I just don't think we need to worry about it right now until we
No.
decide if we're doing bocce. So I don't wanna like say we should do something and then we forget or we
yeah,
start talking
Because-
about something too early. And then people are saying,
Right,
you didn't
I-
put those cedar trees in.
right,
yeah. I don't want to forget this, so I will say it now when we're saying bocce. You know, you kept talked about how much there's like funding for other
Mhm.
projects. I mean, is there some sort of grant or would one of,
For
like when you
recreation
say,
grant?
yeah, I mean, that would build a bocce court.
Question.
And because that's, you know, just something I thought about that if there's some way that we can get a grant from someplace, then you know, go for it. Not one that competes with the playground.
right.
If
That's what
we
I,
can, if we
that's what
build a
I,
playground.
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
me, Kendra Ziske personally is not looking to do grants or find other funding. Kendra Ziske is ready to,
That's listed in the
To the-
assistant town manager's role. So,
and follow what we're doing through,
yeah,
but
yeah, I get it. You're right.
I'm looking for that break
Just-
Denise was
Yeah.
talking about.
That's for the next recreation committee.
Right,
Yeah.
somebody,
Got
we
Yeah.
put in time, a lot of time.
So
Okay.
that was our meeting. Josh was incredibly impressed with our
Right.
committee, the work we've done, the research we've done. He had incredibly nice things to say about our committee, which was really, I left the meeting feeling really good.
So we did it, our homework.
We did our homework. So anything else anybody wants to share? Fran, Kendra, anything else I missed about the meeting?
I think that was
So,
all, and so we sort of talked about it, but just to make sure, in case anyone, the sealed bid process, he'll reach out to those that we listed. I gave him all the information, but if he needs a different form of contact information, he'll be sure, like specifically the pickleball stuff. And then it gets posted out for others to put in other bids for, and then I don't know the criteria of how they select a bid. They talk about it based on what it looks like, pricing, how easy they will be to work with, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll make a decision, I believe, select board, and then they'll get under contract with that person.
and I'll
But just
keep
to be-
watching the select board
There.
agendas to
It-
make sure.
It would be good if, not all 5 of us or 6 of us. Someone should be kind of a liaison with Josh to just kind of check to see
How's it going?
how's it going and does he need more information? But what he doesn't need is all
No,
5
All
of
of
us going in,
Right.
to do that.
also I'm
I-
happy to answer questions, but I'll say not it to going in. Pestering.
I
Big time is
can
not
do
my
that,
cup of
unless
tea.
Yeah,
you want-
I can do it too, or maybe we simply reach out with an email with the 3 of our emails just to keep us in the loop so everybody knows what's going on. You know, what do you think?
Yeah.
he's like, I don't mind reaching out. I know I'll get one of you and you can get me who I need to contact. So,
Well, and now, I wouldn't do any reaching out for a while.
yeah,
Couple
weeks.
he made a detailed task list, so I would let him
yeah.
process.
Are they going to hire like an overseer for these projects at all, or?
Well, that
that's-
appears.
It sounds like, to me, it sounded like for bocce and possibly the parking lot.
Pickleball.
Well,
Pickleball.
Let me, this was oh no, this is the recreation. Sorry, I got the wrong one pulled up. The job description that was posted today
Mhm.
for the assistant to the town manager, that was listed as one of the jobs.
Mhm.
What
Where
does it
was
say?
that? That was on
Front porch
Front
forum.
Porch Forum today, so
Oh.
let me look that up.
Haven't
What
looked
did
at
it
that.
say?
No, well, I gotta
Oh,
look
oh,
it up. But it was a job description, and being like the clerk of the works and writing grants, and I'll find it instead of just trying to,
Okay, here it is.
you found it?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're a little faster than I am.
And 670. He had told us about that during the meeting.
Mhm.
He's just still doing FEMA stuff and
Well,
he's,
Yeah, but he didn't talk about clerk of the works at that meeting.
No.
So this is something new if he said.
Yeah, but so when you go, yeah, that's the job description. That's the recreation installations in the town-owned park. So it's like, right,
oh,
the last of the
that sounds
bullet.
like us.
yeah. So to me, that kind of sounded like the clerk of the works
Mhm.
thing to me. And I stayed at that select board presentation and heard Josh, talking all about where he needed the help. And that was one of the things that the whole board said, oh, and since we've just approved this parks, we
Oh,
need
good.
to, so
Oh, that's
I
Oh,
think
yeah,
that-
I think that
I
that's what
really
this
think that would
is.
be,
recreational installations. That
yeah, to me,
sounds-
that's
yeah.
what it is. So,
So I don't know that then anybody has to continue to
Do the clerk of the works.
draft it up. Well, I think that we'll probably need to support
sure.
to have that
Absolutely.
transfer of information, the same as what we're talking about.
But I think
with
it
the
would
park,
work.
other park, but
I think it
I
would
don't
work
think you'll be
just
as
like
much heavy
Acer.
lifting.
I think it will work just like Acer, and that was impressive. Even though the town hired Acer, Caitlin was in charge, you were in charge for the park, and then you had us as backups,
Mhm.
Right.
which worked beautifully.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that it's gonna
Yeah.
be like. But it's also gonna be a lot less heavy lifting than if one of us.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, well, we
That'd
don't,
be
especially
not
for the
doable.
pickleball court.
Yes.
You know,
But
we
I
don't have the.
Expertise on it, I
engineering
know.
skills to
Right.
go up,
Seeing it
you know, are you doing the base right?
Right.
Exactly. But when we get to the parking lot part, I think that's a Pete job. Pete can go up there and look 2 seconds and know, did they put enough crushed stone in? Did they put the fabric like they were supposed to? Is it 6 inches deep? I mean, I think we could do that for God's sakes, but I think Pete will be up there making
Yeah,
sure
'cause
it's
this-
done.
You know, the job description doesn't say that they have like contract, that type of experience that Fran's referring to.
Yeah, you're right.
Necessarily,
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
would have to have Pete or somebody like that
Mhm.
supporting them. It's more administrative
Yeah.
in their job description of
Mhm,
who they're searching
mhm.
for.
Okay. And then there's another point that we want to talk about, Mark, Fossil's
That's really not.
recreation. I know it's different, but should we just like update? What they're talking
Well,
about just for.
What else is on the agenda?
Yeah,
Hold on
wait,
just one sec.
put
So
that at
the
the
next
bottom.
thing on the agenda was if there was anything that came out of the planning commission meeting, which I don't think there was, because she was planning on coming here, but
Mm.
at the time I didn't know.
Yeah, so if she's coming, she'll be here within 20 minutes.
Okay.
Then the next item says any other meetings or committee update summaries to be provided by the committee. So if you have any recreation committee or past,
Yeah.
anything anybody else
Okay.
met with.
Well,
This is
then
next.
again, when I stayed for that meeting, Mark presented at the select board later that evening. Well, first of all, there's no one, he's the only member of the recreation
Mhm.
committee right now. And there was quite a discussion about a recreation director. So it's again, maybe a 15-hour-a-week job. The select board really, I remember Kara really suggesting, looking for a volunteer, and they said, no, we want to pay somebody. They had this whole discussion about how when you pay somebody, and how you give them a little authority and a little responsibility and how important that is. So they tasked Mark with coming up a recreation coordinator job description. And then Fran and I were to help him somewhat. And he sent out a job description to Fran and I last week, and Fran added a couple comments on it, whether, I mean, I could share it to you, but it was I mean, I could send it to each of you, but it was just some fiscal responsibilities about, and grant writing he had included in that. Keeping a recreation budget, fundraising, manage the town websites related to recreation activities, and then kind of coordinating with all the organizations that use the park. Manage the recreation committee, use the
Updating
committee
the
to coordinate volunteer efforts.
bulletin boards at the two parks.
Yeah, well, he just didn't put, no, then I had already given him a whole list of specific jobs like that, and he says, no, this is just like the
The job
general
description, like post
job description, and then
actual,
that
like,
would be, because
job
mine
details
were
are
more like
different.
things that the recreation committee could be in charge of, but now he's saying if there's a recreation director, then maybe that would help get more members on the actual recreation committee, because then there would be a little more guidance and they could work together. And that committee would work with trails, gardening, parking, so he had, and that, and then let's see, support recreational oriented businesses. So to kind of coordinate with the bike clubs and the kayak club and the senior center events, and then more public outreach to get some rec committee members and develop new recreation events and activities. So I thought it was
He did a pretty good job.
pretty, yeah.
When he
What
started
were your
talking about,
comments?
Yeah.
well, I'd have to look at the description
I
again,
am
but
putting you on the spot.
well, it almost,
Here's what-
part of
here's
it
what I read.
was, it almost looked like he was suggesting taking over management of Little League and,
Oh, yeah.
and soccer, and I
that's
said,
not-
no.
Not
you-
yet, not
you-
unless they want to give it up.
No, well, and
You don't want to get
you
involved. in
don't
it
want to
too
get in, you
a
coordinate
huge
with
job.
them, but you allow those volunteer
Yeah.
groups to run
Right.
their sports.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when he talked about working with businesses, I get a little
Yeah.
concerned about working with businesses. This is,
Mhm.
we're promoting recreation for free activities
Mhm. Yeah.
for Richmond residents, and I'm not, Umiak or whatever.
And that makes me so angry.
Yeah.
It's really, they're here, but they're really an outside business. And,
Yeah.
so if the bike shop in Richmond wanted to do something, then to
Mhm.
me, you work with those kinds of
Mm.
recreation oriented
Not outside
Richmond,
companies, just want to
Richmond
like
businesses.
rent the
That's right.
park
That's,
essentially.
and that's what Fran added right in there, and,
Mhm.
yeah, if you had
That
your
sounds great.
suggestions,
So
just.
how did the
right.
select board seem? Did they seem like that might be a possibility?
Well, they wanted, yeah, they
wanted
asked
him to
for
write it
the
up. They
job
haven't seen it
description.
They haven't
They wanted
seen
to
it.
see the job description, but they had a whole big discussion about how if you give somebody a position, if you create a position like that, even if it's only 12 or 15 hours, how it's definitely, they had about calling it a director versus a whatever, and how you give somebody some authority and then you.
Well, Lisa's the
odds are you
go-to
get-
person, like,
Yeah.
people don't even know who they're supposed to call when they want to rent the park, the band
Mhm.
show, or rent the park at Brown's Court for a birthday party. They don't even know who they're supposed to call.
Well, and a good recreation director, if he had the time, can actually bring in funds, but not just grants, but
Right.
create activities
Mhm.
that pay for
Like
themselves.
the old Red Cross swimming lessons
Yeah,
program.
we were just talking with somebody about.
Oh my God, that was the highlight of my summers.
And one year, for 3 years, the recreation committee in the library, we had a program called Winooski Lore. And we charged the kids enough money, the parents that sent their kids enough money that we paid for a director for those programs. So that those programs didn't cost the town any money
Mhm.
Right,
because
wow.
the fees were small, but it was enough to pay.
Mhm.
And so a good,
If anybody other than me has looked at summer camp prices
Oh.
these days,
Now,
you could
like
bring in a pretty penny.
Mhm.
the magician, like at the library, does the library's budget pay for that magician?
the Friends
Friends of the library.
Friends of the
That's
library
a
pay for
pretty
their,
cool
their,
thing
the
that
book,
they're doing.
the book sales
Yeah.
help to pay for that.
Mhm.
Anything else on
So-
our agenda?
That's, if there's any other meetings or committees that anybody attended, want to summarize, then the next item is any next steps for the committee on Round Church and Browns Court. I think we went through that as we went, so we don't
Mhm.
need to rehash. And we'll provide,
Oh. Tess wants to bring up a comment.
Yeah.
And I told her she's fine, but tell us how you're thinking.
Okay. Melissa, and I can never pronounce her last.
Whoa.
Okay, has brought up a few times concerning the noise on the pickleball courts. I went through some of the stuff and I found a gentleman who is a member, his name is Bob Unitak. He's a certified referee, he's a USA pickleball ambassador. He's a professionally registered engineer. And he runs a website, a Facebook site called Pickleball Noise Mitigation, okay? Looking at some of this stuff, he talks about decibels and he explains the difference between regular pickleball noise as opposed to run-of-the-mill kind of noise. The difference between pickleball noise and just about anything else, it's that most people think of it as just loudness as far as noise goes. This is a little bit different. Pitch is important
Yes.
because it's that steady pong pong kind of thing. He came out with the chart for the decibels, which deals with the loudness. And just a quick run through, 20 decibels would be whispering at 5 feet, okay? 40 would be a quiet residential area on a calm day. In other words, basically nobody's stirring around. 50 is steady rainfall. 60 would be normal conversation. 70 would be freeway traffic. Okay. Anything above 80, that's where the danger lies. I'm concerned.
Okay. Thanks for joining. Continue.
I'm concerned that
yesterday.
I'm concerned that on the internet, there's all sorts of things out there. I've heard things from my house is, 400 feet away and I can hear a pinging stuff. I've heard, oh, we registered at 65 decibels and I'm going to go deaf. And OSHA is saying that it's perfectly safe. It's to avoid extended periods when it's above 80. Okay. And they're saying above 90 is considered dangerous by OSHA. But my point is that there's so much stuff out on the internet. And I did join his Facebook group. I had been looking at it periodically. And the first few times I looked at it, I think it was maybe late December, early January. At that point, I was seeing pictures that I thought, I wouldn't build a pickleball court there. I mean, it was literally the court here, somebody's house within 50 feet, okay? And those are the kinds of things, the nasty comments that are there. It's depressing, okay? I did look at, some of his other stuff. He has written papers for different magazines. He's posted things. That's where I got this information from. I also dug a little bit deeper and I found I think he called it Pickleball 101. Okay, and one of the things that he mentioned was that foliage and brushes don't have the kind of, it reduces it by about 3 decibels. However, we do have a lot of foliage in the background. Mike and I went up today and did an unofficial kind of thing. And Mike was slamming balls for me. I was walking around, totally unofficial, but I did a clear shot. He was at kind of where the middle of the pickleball field would be.
Mhm.
I was by the garbage can next, down by, I can't remember the famous.
Carols, yeah.
The carols, thank you. I couldn't hear it when it was a tapping thing. When he did a hard drive, I could hear it, but it was very much muted
Oh, that's good.
by the highway. a lot of the sounds, I also had some concerns about the ravine. When I did some research on that, they seem to talk about the ravine as carrying the sound faster, but they said it was minimal because it was warmer air down in the ravine. I was unable to find if it did anything with sound as far as loudness and what it did to sound. I did write a quick email to Bob Unitech, and I basically wanted three things. I wanted to know the effect of the ravine on pickleball sound. I wanted to know, he does run a company. I wanted to know if we had questions or concerns. I realized that there was a cost. I wanted an estimate. He wrote back and said it would be a $2,000 cost, but he would be willing to do some short conversation kind of things. It seems like there was something else that I asked him. Was the cost, the ravine. It'll come to me.
The decibels?
I also asked, when I read his pickleball 101, and I have a question about this, that he was saying that with background noise, he said that basically he's saying if background noise is there, that's a help, because then that pickleball sound
Well,
is-
there's
is-
Has he been
background
to the
noise.
school for reasons?
I was just gonna
Well,
say,
is
the
muted.
volume in a
589.
kindergarten classroom is at like.
The
a low
highway
lawn-
is right there,
Yeah,
and that provides back the
Continuous back.
continuous
Yeah.
noise.
And
Yeah.
the road, the background
Yeah.
noise, yeah.
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 And the
Yeah.
interstate, oh my lord.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and that was one thing that I really try to pay attention to.
Yeah,
I,
good.
I realize, and I appreciate all the digging you've done. I think it's admirable what you've brought to our attention. But I think that there's so much noise in that area right now with the interstate, Jericho Road, the school, and the kids out on recess, which the recess is right there. So do you have any idea what a decibel is? A lot
Yes,
more?
well, I now I'd have to review
Yeah.
that, but I know just when you were talking about what the sounds of certain things and,
Yeah.
and a kindergarten classroom volume level is right up there with the
Yeah.
lower,
Well,
quieter outboard mode or whatever you had there.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, it's the extended and being a hearing impaired instructor for a while, all that stuff was
Yeah.
something, it's how long you are
Listen.
exposed to that sort of things. And I mean, you hear a kid go, "Ah," and that's right up there, depending on the kid. And yeah,
yeah,
um,
and the other.
a noisy restaurant, 85 decibels, a noisy restaurant. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what
Well,
a
the-
classroom is most,
I think
The other,
much of the
the
time.
important thing is to regulate the times.
Mm,
Yes.
There you
Yeah.
go,
totally.
I
yes.
think that's really the important.
That's
We do our best with noise, and then we regulate the times when,
The open and closed.
but he did the testing for a house that was like 100 feet away, and it was 70 decibels.
And how many courts were there?
For- I think his test is a little bit different, that because he's slamming balls against a racket. I'm not sure that it was done as a court.
Okay,
that
and,
was-
and my other question would be, is it on a 2+ acre area that is severely wooded,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Next to a school, next to an
Yeah.
interstate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there are recommendations, but again, on Facebook, you're gonna see people screaming, oh, they're saying 1,000, they're saying 500. When I looked at his pickleball 103 program, he's saying if you have that kind of background noise, 200, I think it was 201 feet from the pickleball court.
I
And
think
that's-
Melissa was also just wanting us to be aware that is, you find all
Yeah.
that stuff on Facebook and
Right.
just to be now we're educated about it, we can explain it to
And
someone
that's
if
great
there's big
research you've done.
concern, yeah.
But I'm thinking, and maybe Virginia would know better than I think the neighborhood up there is so happy that it's not gonna be housing, that they're gonna keep their park, plus that they're gonna be able to use their park more, that, I mean, I think it's a give and take. I may be wrong, but I think it's give and take.
Have you talked to Deb Hardy? She lives in the house.
She is fine
Right.
with it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you've talked to her, because I know she's planning on putting an ADU in her yard, which will be nearer to the pickleball courts.
Betsy Emerson, who are we talking?
Betsy Hardy.
ADU.
Oh, Betsy Hardy.
Betsy Hardy. Oh, did I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
Deb? I meant
It's one of
Betsy
those little
Hardy.
houses.
I knew
Betsy
who you
Hardy.
meant,
Oh,
yeah.
It's accessory
Accessory
dwelling.
dwelling.
She's on the corner.
Okay.
or-
Yeah, and so the other guy wants to do that too. The duplex.
Keytober, Brad Keytober. Yeah,
Yes,
but
he wants
can't
to do the
one
same thing.
Because it's a duplex.
Oh,
And they don't
gotcha.
get ADUs.
Gotcha.
Only single family homes get ADUs, but I know Betsy Hardy is going to live in her ADU, I think, and her son will live in the
Oh,
house, so
okay.
she will be nearer to the pickleball court. So, I don't know, just wondered if you talked to
Well,
her.
that, I didn't know it,
I did, yeah.
about the ADU, but,
Good
so we should use Virginia's.
Time wise,
that's- Yes.
so Kim, but do you mind if we come back to this? Cause I feel like there might be more questions. I just don't wanna waste her
Yep.
time. So please
Yes.
come join us to the table.
Had an exhausting grandparenting day, so.
Aren't they all?
We appreciate you. I'm.
I'm there. They're all exhausting. So anyway, I'm Virginia Clark, Planning Commission. And Keith, the planner, and I have been working on this zoning for Volunteers Green question. A little hampered by the fact that the people in the Department of Environmental Conservation don't ever get back to us. That was Kyle Medash, who was here
right.
at the meeting. So he was away and, we've been in contact with him, but we did go to the guidance document. There is a guidance document for floodplain bylaws, municipal bylaws. So that's what we have been using to think about this question. So none of this is set in stone. We haven't vetted it. We don't know, if it's going to fly or not, but the direction that we're going is the following. There's not any way to do a park district that somehow overcomes the flood hazard district. All of those flood hazard regulations come down from FEMA, then they go to the state through the Agency of Natural Resources, Department of Environmental Conservation. So you have to do, the floodplain regulations take precedence over anything you might do. So there's no such thing as a park district that would somehow overcome that. So you can forget about that. So the avenue that we're working on is to suggest that you can relocate structures within the floodplain. So, we found out at that meeting that you all had that the grassy knoll, we'll call it the grassy knoll,
I know, there's so many names.
is in the floodplain. It is not quite out of the floodplain, even though it's sort of less in the floodplain. If you want to look at it like that, we think there's less flooding up there. So what we would like to say is that structures can be moved around within the floodway. So the floodway is different from the floodplain. The floodplain is kind of the fringe, the outside. So the whole park of Volunteers Green and the grassy knoll is in the floodway. It's where the water, when it comes out of the channel, goes. So, and of course, where the playground structure is there's the most velocity. It's a place where the water really goes fast, as opposed to the grassy knoll that it may gradually rise up to that level.
doesn't have the current.
It doesn't have the velocity and it doesn't have the depth that it has in the lower part. So based on this guidance document that says basically if you don't increase the velocity or impair the functionality of the floodway in any way, then there are certain things that you can do. Relocation of structures is not mentioned. So we think it's suitable, however, to relocate a structure from one part of the floodway to another, as long as you don't make things worse. So,
We, the planning commission,
well,
People moving.
the,
yeah, we, Keith and I,
okay,
right now,
okay.
planning commission hasn't really
Okay.
approved of this,
Okay.
but it seems reasonable to us that you could move a structure around an existing structure we're talking about right now, anywhere in the floodway, as long as you don't make things worse. So moving it to a place where we think it actually makes things slightly better seems like the DRB, who would be involved in making this determination, would find reasonable. So that is the basic sort of premise that we're going under, is if you don't reduce the functionality in any way by increasing the velocity, the level of the water, you don't impact any adjoining properties, you can move pre-existing structures in the floodway to some other place in the floodway. So, and then there would be various associated things we'd have to decide. For instance, the playground structure, what if we replaced it with a
safe one?
structure that didn't impair the functionality in any way? By which we mean all of the pieces that are above the ground that could hinder the water have the same volume essentially. So the playground structure is mostly pipes. So, you know, if there aren't a lot more pipes or like solid climbing walls or anything like that, how much of that structure, can we replace the whole thing? Can we put a new structure? You know, that would be something that we would have to put into the zoning that, you know, if it is a recreational structure, which we are adding as a definition into our regulation, that term, because that term doesn't exist in our floodplain regulations, recreational uses with structures. The only thing that occurs now is recreational uses without structures. So we are adding this term recreational uses with structures, about which we are building these special regulations about relocating them. So hopefully the goal would be to be able to relocate the play structure with some similar kind of play structure, maybe new or partially new, or, you know, put it on the grassy knoll. And that we would not reduce the functionality of the floodplain. Maybe we would even lessen the impact because it's in a place where there's less flooding. If it only floods every 10, 100-year floods, then that's less, obviously. So, and the same thing would be true of the restrooms. So, and the goal there would be probably to have one restroom that was very flood resistant, you know, like stainless steel, so you can just hose it down, very solidly built, probably one handicapped accessible restroom up near the road. You would also need a fence, obviously, around the playground in that area. Forget the concession stand. It's hardly ever used. Don't even bother with it. So one restroom, play structure with its fence around it.
So one restroom as a one stall or one restroom,
Well,
couple stalls?
whatever, I don't know.
Be gender neutral.
Yeah.
Or gender.
All
gender.
gender.
Is
Yeah,
that
thank-
in
One-
taking down the existing?
Yes. So this would take down, you would have to take down, if you're calling it relocating it, you would need to remove the other one. So, as far as I'm concerned, you could put a porta potty down there in baseball season if you really wanted to, and have this one permanent one up with the play structure.
And then there's the band shell,
Yeah, well,
which is where we would want the playground to go.
there's,
Well, I have another thought about that when we,
Go
but
ahead.
let's
Yeah.
hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So the band shell is, I don't really want to wade into that debate.
Yeah.
Personally, from an expense point of view, I probably would just repair that band shell. But anyway, if you wanted to replace it with a pavilion, if you can get the public sentiment
Yeah.
to do that,
Yeah, but just we.
Yeah.
Be allowed.
you aren't relocating that structure, although I suppose you could if you moved it from one side of the grassy knoll to the other side of the grassy knoll. With a pavilion, theoretically, you might be reducing the impact on the functionality because there's no walls in a pavilion.
Right. If you did,
Reducing the flood impact.
The flood impact.
There's no
it
flood
would be actually
impact.
be
Yeah.
less. If it was,
If it's just posts with a roof on
Yeah.
it, then, you're probably reducing the impact, so you could
Yeah.
say that you're relocating it and you're rebuilding it
Mhm.
in a way that lessened the impact, maybe. I mean, that to me is a little less clear than moving the bathroom, getting rid of the other one, moving the playground, getting rid of it where it is now, moving the existing picnic tables and benches up onto the grassy knoll. That's kind of the simplest thing that so far we can imagine doing. So in terms of any kind of a path there, so there are really two issues associated with the floodplain. One is the functionality of the floodplain. You cannot reduce it in any way. The other one is the expense. Because in terms of reducing the functionality, you could just leave the playground where it is. It's fine. It's just that it's expensive to keep replacing it.
Fixing it every time.
You don't want that expense. So the same is really true of any kind of a path, a paved path. That doesn't, if it's flat on the ground, it isn't considered to reduce the functionality of the floodplain, just like the paved parking area isn't. But there's no way that you can protect that from scouring. The maintenance costs are high. To us, it makes no sense whatsoever to put a paved path, to put anything else in the floodway, really. So, I think that is, that's kind of in the expense column instead of in the functionality column. So, but it's important. Yeah,
so,
and they're expensive to build. I was just visiting my son who lives in north of New York City in suburbia. Suburbia has a lot of people. They live close together. It's very dense. There's a lot of money. Those wide, beautiful paved paths, landscaped, $100,000 a mile. They have like 4 or 5 mile loops. That's just the cost to make it, let alone to maintain it. All this vegetation, it has to be mowed, it has to be plowed. To me, we don't have density to support those kind of amenities. We just don't. We have rural character. That's what we have. And we don't have very many people who live here. We don't have enough to support those kinds of things. So, from a planning point of view, it doesn't really seem to make sense to put a paved path there. So that's where we're at so far. We're talking about relocating things that already exist as the basis of our document, and then making it so that you can actually make them new or make them kind of better, or,
Do you have a few
Okay.
moments so we could ask you some questions?
sure.
Do you?
Yeah.
you have one
well, my
first?
question is the process of getting to that point where you have made some changes or we've sort of have a basis for where we can move forward with any kind of plans, you know, what a kind of timeline.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say. We failed to have a quorum last night for our meeting, which was a public hearing, which generated a lot of frustration and heat, shall we say, and discontent. So if we can't even get a quorum for our meeting, we're down to 5 members out of 7. So a quorum, we need almost all of those people. We have lots of things that are pending and people are waiting for. But it seems to us like it would be fairly easy to make these changes to the zoning. They're pretty small changes, and if we can hear back from A&R, then you know, we should be okay. So it would be a conditional use, this relocation within the floodway. So that would mean you would have to go to the DRB and they would have to approve it. But if we lay it all out, that it's possible, if you're not reducing the functionality, if you're not increasing the area that is hindering the water, if you're not impacting any adjoining properties. So it should be a fairly straightforward process with the DRB. To get there, we have to, you know, it will be a zoning change, so we have to have a public hearing,
So
planning commission, and then it goes to the select board. So it's a few months, even if we have it done. We have a draft mocked up, but we have to get the planning commission's approval and we have to get A&R's approval. So best case scenario, it's like a few months, I would
I
say.
guess my question, and it's hypothetical.
Yeah.
So we could move the rec committee with, you know, Jeannie had been helping and working with them, had gotten a quote for the new playground that is, and I'm not gonna say the acronyms correctly, the ADA compliant and you know, all the things that ours isn't. And it was gonna be around $200,000. So if we got rid of the one down below, we could definitely move it to the grassy knoll. You think?
You could definitely move the one down below to the grassy knoll. The new one, I think we would have to come up with the fact that it's not impacting the floodway any more than the current one.
Yeah, and I think that's what Tyler, we'd even had that discussion if even to replace what's there, which is 30 years old and
Yeah.
it's probably not going to pass inspection the next time. I don't think that can even be repaired, any piece of it
Anymore.
So his comment then was it had to be the same existing footprint, and obviously it would be a little bit
Yep.
different up above.
Or
but-
smaller.
Right. And it could
Well,
go
the
higher if
type
we had
of-
a structure.
Well,
you
it
had a
could go
second,
higher, I guess.
right, you
Yep.
could have a second, but
And if we want to keep it simple and not require
Mhm.
that you have a hydrologic study
Mhm.
to prove that it is not impacting the floodway any more than the current one, I would recommend that you make sure that you look at like the number of pipes in the ground, how their diameter. I mean,
Gotcha.
these are things you all could do.
Uh-huh.
You can measure the diameter of a pipe. You can add those all together. This is what we've got. That's the impact. To us, that seems like, and we're gonna have to talk to Tyler about this, obviously, that would probably be persuasive enough that it's not impacting it anymore. If you measured it, or you had whoever's consulting about the playground,
Mhm.
if you tell them the structures that are above the ground, not flat on the ground, that are above the ground, there can't be any more of that than there is now. Now, there is a question based on the guidance document about whether you can actually expand it by 500 square feet, less than by 500 or less, or by less than 500, I think, square feet of expansion. So Keith and I are looking into that. Because then, if that were the case, then you could make the argument that we're expanding it a little bit. We have a few more pipes or a few more
A little
slides
bit more
or,
of a lenient, like, space around in terms of not exactly, okay, so there's 20 pipes.
right,
It's
and
now 23.
yeah, I mean,
little
and
buffers
and the
outside.
question of the footprint
Mhm.
is ambiguous, because
Right.
what is the footprint
Well,
of
that
a
was-
playground?
Exactly.
You know, is the footprint the whole thing,
Mhm.
or is the footprint just where there are structures that are above the ground? So that is something that we'll have to resolve.
Were
And
And
we
he was
using
trying
the
to s-
footprint of the chips, the wood chips?
Well, that's what we were
Tyler had
talking
said,
about, but
yeah.
that did not include, so when we were looking at that, though, we didn't include where the sandbox was, where the tetherball was, or the swing sets. So
Yeah,
we
but the
didn't
swing
really,
set was
the swing
gonna-
set doesn't
was
have to
gonna
be
Stay
moved.
down. You
well,
wouldn't
that's
move the swing
right,
set.
I'm. Yeah.
yeah,
except that
well,
that's-
and whether the
not-
wood chips
Right.
is part of the structure, I don't know.
Say that.
The other thing that we're doing, and we're doing this for other parts of our zoning as well, is we're creating a definition of on-ground improvements. Because it's crazy to call everything, you know, the definition in the zoning of structure is an assembly of material for use. Which doesn't really meet anybody's intuitive sense of what a structure is. So we are separating out on-ground structures so that we can regulate them differently if we need to. So for instance, a driveway is an on-ground improvement. Or a parking area, it's an on-ground improvement, it's not a structure. Right
Right.
now, Tyler has to call it a structure, and it's like,
We've heard that.
that doesn't help. Because there are some things that you're okay with a parking area, but you're not okay with a building or a pipe even, or. So we're doing that, and we're also putting in this category of recreational uses with structures. And to us, that includes things like a baseball diamond with a fence around it. You know, a fence is a structure, or a fence and dugouts, you know, so actually your baseball diamond with dugouts and a fence could be relocated somewhere else in the floodplain if you did it exactly the same, if you wanted to. I don't think you will, but a tennis court, a bocce court, those are going to be recreational uses with structures. You know, the bocce court has little posts, right?
Yep.
Some kind of little posts. Yeah, so a paved path doesn't have any structures. It is an on-ground improvement, but we don't recommend that you do that because of the expense. Anyway. So, yeah, so we have to really refine what the footprint of a playground, a play structure is, and we will put that in the zoning so that we will understand. Is it the whole area of the wood chips, or is it just the area of the structures associated with the playground? So,
And I guess I'd just like to make a comment too. The band shell, I mean, we know it has, to me, you know, financially, we know it has structural issues. We know that the concrete on the floor floods and that is an issue. We know we need to build an ADA ramp or something to make it accessible for all and compliant. And then when you do all this stuff, is it better just to do a pavilion with a handicap bathroom?
yeah, well, it all depends on how you weigh the iconic, historic value of the structure. So,
Do you think that there ever could be a pavilion with a handicap bathroom in it? Since it would have no walls?
If you got rid of the other bathroom, you would have to, right?
So you'd
Well,
have to destroy the other
well.
bathroom.
if you're going to consider that you're relocating it, you have to destroy the other bathroom.
Okay.
And there's a good reason to destroy the other bathroom.
There
anyway.
is. Yeah, there is.
If you have been
is
in
whether
there
we think
after
that
a
we can get
flood,
Yeah, we all took a little walking tour.
the baseball people, the people who run Little League were pretty heroic to
They
go
were.
into those structures. So, That needs to go away.
It
That
does.
bathroom needs to go away. The concession stand doesn't need to be there. We don't use it, and, you know, it's used maybe once or twice for baseball games. There's
For a pop-up
absolutely no reason to use it. So just get rid of that whole thing. So, you know, to put a bathroom, a pavilion and a play structure on the grassy knoll strikes me as rather a lot on the grassy knoll, but
In total, it would actually be less
Space. where-
volume.
Mhm.
Then the
we're
band
current-
The band,
Than the band shell,
band shell,
Yeah.
bathrooms In the play structure
I
currently.
mean, because the bathrooms down on the green is actually,
Much
it's a
bigger.
significant.
Yeah.
it
It
is.
has a significant.
And if you could put one single restroom, handicapped access, all gender restroom,
Mhm.
then it would be smaller.
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
So. But I'm gonna let you all deal with the band shell question
Yeah.
because,
Well, I think there's one person who, Gary, who when I talked to first, did not express the opinion he did
Yeah,
at that meeting.
that was a total
He
shock.
changed he
That-
changed his opinion, but most people I've talked to have no love for the band shell. And
yeah, well, you all can work
Yeah,
that
yeah,
out. I mean, we have our own problems
Yeah.
with
No, we're not.
with everyone I talk to, because you only talk to the
Yes.
people who are, feel like you do, and there are 10 of them, and there are another 4,000 people in the town. So,
Yeah, I mean,
you
that,
know.
that would, if we wanted to go that way, that is our problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's your problem.
Right,
I'm
right,
not gonna
right.
go
Public
there,
outreach.
but,
Yeah.
and you know, the question of whether you could consider rebuilding the band shell into a pavilion. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to really look at that a little bit. It does seem to make sense in terms of being less reducing of the functionality of the floodplain to have a pavilion as opposed to the band shell. But we'd have to figure that out after maybe, well, we'll see how it goes with you all with,
Anybody else have any other
with the band
questions?
shell.
Virginia, thank you so much for
My,
giving
my
us
my
your
only
time.
question, like a fence around, is that a
That would be,
plan, DRB thing too?
You would have to have a fence,
Well, I
but
know we'd have to have a
what we
fence
would
around it,
consider
but how
that
do
would
we-
be, this is,
A safety measure.
the
that's necessary.
recreational use is a playground which has a fence around it. It's a part of it's one of the structures that is associated, you know, the structures that are associated with this playground are the pipes that hold the things up,
Yes.
the slides, whatever solid pieces are in there, the fence around it, the
part of-
benches.
Yeah.
And the picnic tables that go with the parents sitting, you know, we would consider that to be a playground, a
Area.
recreational use with structures, and they're part of the structures.
Okay.
So,
Now, do you need two of our committee members to come to your committee meetings? For any reason, we'll do anything we need to do to
Yeah.
help move this along,
yeah, no, not that I can think of right yet.
but
Yeah.
just let us know.
Yeah,
We will be there to explain, to,
yeah.
you know, whatever.
And I guess my other question, is it worth trying to get another drawing, another playground?
Rendering
Yeah, a drawing of what it would look like up there? I mean, we have,
to
you know,
scale.
we already have had
Right.
3 companies give us drawings for when we thought it would go down below before the
Yeah.
second flood.
Right.
So, I mean, we have some drawings that obviously they'd have to be a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't think for
That
our
won't be a-
purposes that makes any difference.
Okay.
What you need to do is you and your consultants about playgrounds
Yeah.
have to try to make sure that there's no reduction in the functionality of the floodplain.
Yep.
So there aren't a lot more pipes, there aren't climbing walls, there aren't
Slabs
thicker
or
things or wider things. I mean,
walls,
you'll
no-
just have
yes.
to work with people on that, because if it's questionable, I think the DRB is going to want a hydrologic study to show, to
Mm.
prove that it's not reducing the functionality. And I don't know how much that costs or how long it takes, but you know, we kind of think
Does it not reduce the, what's the word?
functionality of the floodplain. In other words, no more structure than currently exists.
There's quite a bit of structure on the current.
Yeah, but not
Not
most
really.
of it's above, I mean, most of
Oh,
it's
it's the
above.
walking.
It's just the, what is on the ground above the ground.
Yeah.
So it's pipes mostly, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Mhm.
my
There's really not.
recollection of the playground. I have,
Almost everything you have
Well,
to,
then
like,
that's
there's some steps.
Sort of the question
so it'd
becomes
be-
with the ramps and things, that those
Right,
ADA ramps would then be outside of, they would be
Yeah.
added.
but I know there's a whole nother way to look, I mean, you don't have to have ramps to make it ADA accessible. I mean, there are,
I'm just thinking of the images we
Yes,
saw. One of them
right.
would be completely out of the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Because of the added flats.
Yeah.
The other one that I think that we liked best anyway is probably fairly close
Mhm.
in just envisioning what it looked like
Yeah,
compared to
yeah.
the one that we have.
Right.
and
right.
what we should try to do sooner rather than later for your purposes is to decide about this 500 square foot expansion
That would be helpful. to know.
question. Because
Mm.
in the guidance document, but it suggested that this goes with a hydrologic study, there's a question of expanding pre-existing non-conforming structures, which is what we have in the floodway right now. That it's possible to expand them up to an additional 500 square feet.
I'd just be sure it's.
So we need to look at that, and that's where the ANR people really need to talk to us about it.
Yeah, that
And
would be helpful to know, because
Yeah.
then we could proceed with a preemptive kind of planning and putting together and drawing up, and so that if it all
Mhm.
then
Right.
works, it would be seeable,
Yeah.
an image for the DRB to then see that it's the equivalent
Mm-hmm.
kind of situation.
So, you know, I'd say it's gonna be at least another month before the planning commission and ANR and everybody look at this and we go over it with Tyler, you know, Keith also obviously has zoning administrative experience, but Tyler is the zoning administrator right now. So whatever it is that we do, he's a rule guy.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
He's into the rules. So we need to make it absolutely clear what the rules are and how he's gonna react to those rules. So, and, you know, I don't know if you've looked at having a hydrological study done, but no, yep.
Chris Haggerty that evening talked about one, but
They've done
we,
one before.
but we haven't looked
Yeah.
into any costs or anything
Yeah,
associated.
so, you know, we might be able to,
Before you have a study, you have to have
The plans.
a plan.
Yeah,
yeah, so we could look into what the cost maybe of that is when we talk to the ANR people.
Mhm.
In case it's not clear to the zoning administrator that the functionality has not been reduced in any
it was
way.
shocking to me just to see the cost of a structural engineer to go over, look at the beams
Two
that are.
beams on the bench.
Yeah, two beams, what the cost on that was, it was like,
Yeah.
oh,
$8,000.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy, just to look at it. Not
Yeah.
even to fix it, just to look at it.
Yeah. Well, and all these prices are, you know, increased by 3 and 4 times over pre-pandemic. It just, the cost of construction is so high right now that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, a lot of projects are on hold because people just can't do it. You know, they can't make it work because the cost of construction are so high, let alone the fact that you can't actually get anybody to do the work. Because there aren't people to do the work. So
Yeah.
it's a conundrum.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, so that's where we're going and we hope that that will be
Thank you
okay.
for all your help and your committees help, we
Mhm.
so appreciate it.
Yep. Have you heard from from Pete about the other thing? About putting the
Oh, the
the
concrete pad?
concrete pad?
I think he
don't-
was gonna do that where it currently sits.
Right,
And I
exactly.
don't wanna speak for everybody, but I think we all have come to the conclusion that,
The preferable would be to move it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
You know,
obviously, and
after
that was
3
kind of if we
floods and every
can't-
time we get additional damage
Yeah,
and.
if we
Yeah.
couldn't move it up.
There would be
that would be
damage
huge,
to
Yeah.
the,
and it'd
to
be
the
hugely
place.
And
expensive to do that.
Pete spoke and did a presentation about the man hours, the cost.
yeah,
And like, I mean, they worked for days getting the silt out and it was just crazy and we said, we can't keep doing the same old thing.
Right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you know, maybe the structure has to be a little smaller, but I do agree with you all that it's a very important piece of the community. I mean, it's where all the toddler parents get to know each other. It's like totally
meeting place.
central. Yeah,
When their older siblings are playing ball, they're in the playground.
Right.
When they're at the farmer's market,
yeah,
kids are down there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, the farmer's market was thrilled to be possibly able to move
down,
down where the playground
Yeah.
is, because it's so shady.
right. And they would be a temporary structure, you know, they're
Exactly,
all in the
exactly.
temporary structures and you can have the
Yes.
temporary structures there and, you know, just put any of your picnic tables or benches up on the grassy knoll and don't put any other structures down on them.
People can bring.
And
their
I
own
think,
furniture.
you know, people would be behind that kind of project.
Mhm.
The band shell, I don't know, but I'm not gonna.
No, I think a little bit of.
I've got my own my own
This is the
problems.
cost to fix it. This is the cost,
Yeah.
a beautiful new pavilion with
With bathrooms.
handicap bathrooms.
Yeah,
Email.
yeah, well, it's all about the outreach.
I know,
So,
it is. It is.
yep,
Well,
now
thank
that the select board knows that it's gonna cost more to give up the grant to do the sidewalk on East Main Street than it would be to build it.
Uh-huh.
So, anyway, there you are.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'll keep you posted. You know, we'll try to get onto it as quick as possible. I know Mark is interested in it, so I'm sure he'll be pushing it along.
But he's
Great.
gone away for.
Yeah,
Wait, think of it.
That was part of your quorum, huh?
yeah, part of our quorum, yeah.
Right, thank
So
you.
anyway, So you're welcome. So I hope this is helpful and,
Oh, it was
um,
incredibly
yes.
helpful.
yeah, we're encouraged to think that it will fit in with the guidelines at least that we're getting
Yes.
from A&R.
It's
Thank
encouraging.
you so
to
much
hear.
for
Thank you
joining us.
for-
We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Back to dinner.
Oh. Thanks. Oh, that's a lot of food for thought, huh?
Yeah. So I do want to just share the one thing, you know, we keep talking about like to move the band shell or not move the band shell too. I would make a pavilion where the band shell is. If you put the band shell where the trees are right now, then there's a concert, everybody has to sit in the playground.
Mhm.
It really should, you know,
Don't
I
they
think,
sit among past the trees?
What
No, that
she's
wouldn't be
saying,
big
what
enough.
she's saying is if instead you swapped it and had the playground be closer to the road in the
Yeah.
pavilion, then you could have the concert going and people could be sitting down in that lower
yes.
space.
Right.
But if you have the pavilion on the side where the road is, then you'd have the playground in between.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I get
So I
that.
wouldn't, yeah, we've talked a couple
Yeah.
times that I would swap, but I would say it would stay, and that way, then
If
the
you can have the fence,
sidewalk
that'd be
that's going
doable.
up
Since
to a
we can have the
gate.
fence,
Yes,
then I'm not as opposed to
exactly.
having the playground on that side. It was
Yes.
if we had to use the pavilion as
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
child
so-
buffer.
Yeah,
And the
and that
guardrails are
way,
kind of ugly anyway.
well, yeah, we knew we had to get rid of those. So that way, the sidewalk that's going up, we'd have to put, you know, a gate at the fence here,
Right.
but that is almost part of your accessible ramp then.
Totally.
So then this wouldn't have to be such a big ramp, or it could be, you know, an access place there. So that was, I just wanted to be sure that that was my thought. And then, so then maybe we get the playground and
Deal with the
again,
band shall have
I
a later
mean,
date.
yeah, we have to, I mean.
If
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
have the
people
funds.
work on it. I
If,
too,
if
that
we don't have the
got-
funds
Yeah,
for either.
or we just at least get the research.
Mhm.
So just
Discussion
putting this
started.
out there,
Mm-hmm.
do we find another architect to possibly draw? You know, just to have something to look at.
I don't know that.
You know
there's
what I would
anything
do?
Conceptually.
I think that the next, in my opinion, is to go back to the Justin Mansfields.
Yeah.
And count up their poles
Oh,
and
totally.
and do all that, and then that essentially is the biggest part of what's up there.
Yeah.
So then you don't really need like an architect to do that part, that they do those depictions that look like that. And then, so you start with that and see what that's gonna cost. And then you're gonna have to evaluate what the cost of said pavilion with a bathroom would be compared to.
In order
cost
to,
of the
yeah,
pavilion
but
with the-
I'm getting the feeling that in order to really do anything, we almost need to get rid of the bathroom
I agree.
down below.
Which you-
And that takes away a lot of the thing that impedes the floodway. I think that gives us a lot
Oh,
of,
man, I guess.
a lot of
We have to
room,
build a
you know,
bathroom.
structure,
Yes.
Oh, wicked.
Mm-hmm,
up on
Mhm,
the level.
Mhm.
I agree.
I wonder if there's a way we could pay John.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, I don't know about you guys, I am such a visual learner that I need to see things. And when he did Brown's Court, it was like, wow, you know, because I'm such a visual and, you know, maybe we, we say, John, we want you to do the work because you were incredible, but we're gonna pay you this time. You're gonna be paid.
I know he had said in the very beginning that he and Ben Bush would be interested in trying to figure out something.
Do a
Oh,
pavilion.
good.
Right, pricing out something like that. Is that what you're
Or,
talking about?
or, you know,
Designing
working
it,
on
making
a
sorry,
design-
designing it,
designing
right,
it.
right. That's what he said. Yep. That's
And you know, I was thinking about if, with the band shell, keep it, change it. Maybe it's just, again, having another small group of people get together, like the two people on the front porch forum who said, save the band shell and
So can
band
I tell you one
members
thing
and like
about
get
that?
about 5 or 6 people
One
together. and-
was Youngberg.
Yes.
And I talked with him and I
Mm.
said, I really appreciate you writing and getting involved. I said, can we talk about it for a minute? And he goes, sure. And I told him, he had no idea of the structural issues. He had no idea someone had fallen and gotten very hurt last year. His wife is now
Yeah.
handicap accessible. I mean, she needs handicap accessibility. So he gets it now. And I said, that's what we were trying to do. And when you put all those costs together and then build a new, that's why we. were
Well,
gonna do it.
also the musicians
Mhm.
Yeah.
don't feel that it is good for music.
Right.
They're playing towards the road.
The acoustics.
So what we had talked about is the thing that we wanted to do when we were getting closer to this stage was to hold a public hearing around this
Yes.
and bring in have it be open to public, but also be able to have people representing the farmers market and the different band people we talked to and
Yeah.
get the, juices
Get the
flowing on the
soccer,
films,
get
yeah.
the baseball reps.
Well,
Also-
no,
No,
No.
up top,
Oh,
up
up top.
top, like
Yeah.
what we're talking about with the
Okay.
pavilion
Only,
versus band shell, the
and restroom.
restroom,
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
people, those public and
Mhm.
Interested parties.
exactly.
Well, and we
every-
know that
To have
the
that
farmer's
discussion.
market had said they would be fine.
Right, but to be involved in, so we still
the
want them
planning
represented
purposes.
in that meeting.
Yeah.
So that then we're not just saying.
And they
"The
can
Farmers
take-
market told
They can
us,"
disseminate this
yes,
information
yes,
to
yes,
their
yes.
bodies,
right,
and they've got it right from
because
table.
that might be what they thought, and then it could change, and then now they're saying, no, don't speak for us.
So do you think the
And I
next
even-
step is to have Jeannie contact Mansfield? Get
I
a
think,
drawing.
I think that's,
And then I'd
Okay.
be happy to stop at John's and see if he and Ben would be willing, if you were paid this time, to come up with something with the guidance of the Mansfield drawings.
Mhm.
Well, if that's, the Mansfield drawings are, the
That would
playground
be
is just
more like
a
A square.
minimal part.
Right,
Right.
right,
Part of it. It's the whole layout of how
Right,
you
right,
could
right,
do
yeah.
it
Yeah.
nicely
right.
up there to make
well,
it
and he
something
wanted
that,
to be able to, John, what you're mentioning is that he wanted to be able to potentially design the pavilion with the bathroom. like
Oh, yeah,
what
yeah,
that-
yeah.
well, no, the
No,
whole,
the
the
whole up
whole,
there?
the whole up there.
Okay,
Like he
With
laid
fans
out.
and-
yeah,
You
I
know,
understand.
so you have a really good visual.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, this is a chance to design something that
I mean, you
when you're-
figure
when
what
you're
we've had has
driving up-
lasted
when
30
you're
years.
driving up toward the bridge, you
Mhm.
look over and you see something that
Mhm.
is really nice.
Mhm.
You know, that it's a pavilion, you see a nice
That
playground.
pavilion you sent pictures of, that was
beautiful.
gorgeous. That was
There were,
gorgeous.
yes, that really was nice. And there were
That was
several
gorgeous,
others.
Fran.
I'm
Well,
just,
and
yeah.
it's, that one wasn't, really, it has less volume than the band shell.
For sure, that most definitely. Let alone the band shell plus the bathroom,
Yeah.
because that back
there were-
space is what I envisioned as a bathroom, when you, I
Yeah.
know they use it for
Mhm.
storage.
Yeah,
it
but
looked like,
that's
But that's
exactly-
exactly what I envisioned, was like,
I'm just gonna contact the town
that did
and
it and
say,
see.
um,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
can you send
Okay,
me to
right.
the architect and what would it cost
Mhm.
to get
The drawings.
the drawings?
Yep.
for
But I
that?
just, I loved everything about what you sent. That was
I
just
thought it was clean.
beautiful.
Right, yeah, so it looked like it would send the sound
Yeah,
out
Yeah,
when you have.
but I
room.
think others need to, and I think they need to be
visually, I think to have that meeting, I think we have to have some of those visuals.
Visual.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And we
Or
need
else
to
we're
have
just
some of the
kind of-
costs, you know, what do we do? This is what it's costs for the structural engineers. And then we also need, you know, the better acoustics. We need, you know, electric, some of the, you know, the whatever.
Here's just a couple more pictures. I don't know if I would.
If you
how to
followed
make
it,
it
you
big,
could-
but
yeah.
you know, there were like, I mean, there's all different varieties, but things that are very open,
Yeah.
but yet
Yeah.
that have the rooms in the back,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, there were just.
Well, the
there was a
one
whole
in,
bunch, but I mean,
I
that was.
don't know if you guys
classic.
have been
That-
to
right.
where,
Here's-
is it
Different
Jericho
design.
Farmers Market?
Up at Mills.
Mills River Park?
Yep, that
Those
one's beautiful.
pavilions are
Those are beautiful
beautiful.
up there.
Yeah.
Those pavilions
Yeah.
are beautiful.
They
They're
have-
huge.
I haven't
They don't have
been up
bathrooms.
They don't have bathrooms,
They don't,
but
yeah,
those pavilions are beautiful and those
Yeah.
get used all the
all the
time.
time.
And it's a moneymaker for the town.
Right, because you can
You
rent.
can rent
Yeah.
all weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
people, Mount Mansfield, most classes hold their reunions up there, their
Mhm,
picnic,
mhm,
family
mhm.
picnics.
Well, that is more isolated though, as
Right,
far
right,
as.
Yes.
right.
uh,
I don't think
Right.
that that's what, the same
Yeah.
thing as what we're gonna get to
Yeah.
here, but it's the concept of they're well used.
Yes.
It would be
yeah,
well used.
Totally.
So I think, you know, the key is going back to the playground people, having them redesign, counting, making sure no, whatever the phrase
Yeah.
was that she used.
I was
Having,
typing the whole, I'm not gonna be able to read it because I wasn't.
Well, I
looking,
took
but
notes
will
too,
go
so
over.
send
And
us what
then-
you
Yeah,
think.
that's
well,
A.
plus I get the audio
Yes.
tomorrow.
B is,
so
you're gonna go and ask about the pavilion you saw and pricing
Yeah,
and things like that.
yeah.
C is somebody
I'll call
drawing up,
John and Ben.
see if he's willing to draw up a design, and then
I'll
once we
send you
have
the
these
pictures of each other
pieces,
ones that I pulled up.
then we
too, just-
schedule a public
Yeah.
discussion.
Mhm.
Because the playground could be very separate. If the band shell's where it is.
You know how we brought
ahead.
John in when he did his
Mhm.
drawings?
Mhm.
Just as a hypothetical, should we bring in Mr. Mansfield?
He is definitely one that would do that. I
think he should
remember
be in the
asking
room.
him about that,
Just in case, you
when,
know,
when that happens.
when
we
we
get
have the
to that.
public.
Yeah. He
And
would,
then,
I think he would do that.
okay,
Or
so
at least call in. so
we're
that
gonna
if
be
somebody
outta
were to
here by
say,
9,
"What
guys."
else is not good?"
we're gonna be out of here by 9.
Well, that's, I mean, we're,
This is
Now it's our
good.
next
So
meeting.
are we,
Yeah,
so
next
my
meeting.
big question, are we taking July off? Or do we wanna do something end of July?
Well,
Now,
by the time, I don't know how long it would take Justin to get anything.
Right.
So I could just be working on that for July.
part
It
of
might
me
be a
like
while.
thinks that you give it 3 weeks, we put something on the calendar and we assess
where we're at, if we have
a
any
week
new.
before that. If we have anything, somebody will say, everyone will send me, okay, we do, it's like, nope, that week before. And then a full week before, so that then I know, do I put together this agenda? Or do I say we're canceling? And then you are allowed to email back and forth scheduling a meeting.
Mhm.
That's
to
a
be
good
clear.
idea, cause Josh might have questions for us by,
Exactly.
in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
There might be
might
things we
in
need,
3
and it could be
weeks.
a brief meeting. It could
Right.
be that we're just touching
Right.
base and dispersing and it's an hour and we're done or less, you know what I mean? But I think putting something on the calendar that's a little bit sooner than we may need it
Right,
is
Mhm.
probably safer than
Mhm.
trying to scramble and schedule something and then we don't have an agenda and it's not been posted and you know the drill.
Good thought.
okay, so what is everybody's availability for the week of July 22nd?
I'm not available later in the week because I go to a wedding.
Oh, yay,
Oh, till 22nd. That's 1 week later than I thought. Actually, no, that's fine.
so there's a 20, yeah, Monday is
thinking it was-
22nd,
The week before that was the
Thursday,
third
the
week. So that's,
25th,
but
I mean,
to be clear,
Thursdays
hold
seem
on.
to be,
yeah,
hold on though.
that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. That is,
The 25th.
that week of the 22nd is 5 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Whether that's too long to go.
Well, you've got like a holiday week in there kind of thing.
I think that's a good.
I'm
time.
just making
I
sure
think
we
the
can,
25th
okay.
is a good time. And if something comes up and we need to schedule,
But it's harder to do that,
Yeah.
Denise, because we
Right.
have to have posted I have to create the agenda, we have to have posted the agenda.
right?
We have to have made sure we have the room. It's harder to scramble to add a meeting than it is to cancel.
So
a meeting.
the 18th. I can't come.
I can't come.
That's the day I turn 80, so.
I can't do
Oh
the
my God, maybe we should come at the party. I am gone
So I'm
the
not
whole week
coming
of the
then.
15th. That's why I kind of had said the
Yeah.
25th.
So all I'm saying is that if we're gonna double down on it being that, it's gonna be too hard to scramble to put one together. To be
No, I
clear.
think
I-
that's,
I
fine.
agree
I
with you.
think
That's good.
that's.
Let's
I
do
think
the
that's
25th.
Cause, I mean, it
And if
may,
Josh-
We've all got jobs to do.
yeah.
And Tess is gonna be in the hot seat with
The week of the
Josh
22nd,
for a while.
what days work then? What was,
Thursday night,
Thursday the
Thursday the
20
Thursday the 25th. I think we deserve a couple weeks off. We've been busting butt.
Well, we're not gonna know anything from,
Right.
so
She's
the
gonna
whole
be.
planning process
Yeah,
is.
she said she's gonna be a few weeks. Josh is working. We know he's working hard. And the only one he's gonna be contacting is Tess. Because you're the go-to on pickleball.
Mhm. I'm still gonna be scrubbing some benches.
But I
You
think,
know.
don't you have to order your benches? Don't you guys have to order your
Yes.
benches? Yes.
Yeah.
So that's part of
Contract.
your homework too.
Same, yeah. So
You
we
have to
got
order
that,
your
we got
benches.
that.
I'm
Well,
also going to go out and get locking box for the spigot, water spigot. Because it's right there. It's right, you know where we put that sign? It's like right on the boundary line right
Mhm.
there. So I'm gonna go out also and get, I already met with Steve from the head honcho
Okay.
from Water and
just gonna
Sewer.
Say, would Pete be able to order that cheaper than you going somewhere and?
So I'm gonna talk with Steve and he says, Denise, we got people, we have 2 people we deal with. They're really good. They know exactly what they're doing. I said, but I need a locking box. He goes,
Yeah.
come over and see me.
Yeah.
So I saw him Monday night at the select board meeting. So he said to come to him. I would love to get a spigot in there, just in case,
Yeah.
and then I was talking to somebody else.
Oh.
Who was it? Was you telling me or you telling me? Somebody was telling me that they have a recreation department. They control it at night. They shut the water off. So no kid can go up there and leave it run all night. I said, we don't have a recreation department. But he said that he wonders if the town has the capability of shutting it off.
You mean, they'd have to,
In case someone broke into the lock.
that'd be,
you'd have to do it every day, wouldn't you?
But
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
we're
and they're-
becoming computerized. Did you guys know that?
Mm.
We're becoming computerized. They're changing all my meters at the building, but we're becoming computerized, and I think that's gonna be one of their capabilities.
yeah, but that'll be a while before,
No, they're installing now. We're making appointments
Yep.
now.
but it'll be a while before,
We need it.
You can turn it off and.
before they would get all the abilities to, to set a timer on a spigot to say you can't access it past 8 o'clock or.
Okay,
Right.
so does,
So-
so does everybody remember all of your tasks?
I'm gonna need hoses. If they start building pickleball courts, they do need access to water and hoses to.
Okay, so we need to purchase hoses.
But not until.
Not now,
August.
But we
Not
don't
now.
know, but we won't.
They're
know
not
until
even-
we Know when they.
As you're building, you need them?
Hmm?
As you're building, you need them?
Yeah, but we haven't even gone out to bid yet, so they may not. even
They'll
build
tell
till
us
next
what they
year.
need.
Yeah, they may not even build till
Contractors
next year,
will,
Yeah.
when they're building the pickleball courts, will
right?
work.
Say,
it.
how do we get
Tess,
water?
could you just get some
Prices.
quotes on some hoses?
Sure.
Some
Sure.
good hoses?
Yep.
And
And then you almost need the storage shed to put the hoses.
Right.
And just sort of
Yeah,
like all
let's
the.
not
I-
buy
yeah, don't get-
anything.
oh, no, we're not gonna buy them,
No.
but Josh wants us, remember, he's pushing
Yeah,
it.
but-
Yeah.
He wants us to
That's
spend
fine.
the money by November 1st.
Right, but that's not like, in the next month. That's why,
Right, but that could be part of her homework.
I mean, prices
We
are
could
gonna
look at
change if
Lowe's
you
and
don't buy them
see how
until
many hoses.
November.
how many hoses cost. I mean,
So,
that's-
anyway.
That's,
that's not-
Everybody knows their homework. So the one, if we're gonna wait that long, can we just provide periodic updates so that we don't get to that point and we all go, oh yeah, I forgot, that was me.
Okay, so should I still be copying Mary on
Yes.
the minutes and just?
And I
keep
had a
it
question
being-
about that. We've got another big project ahead of us.
Mhm.
Is it time to exchange Mary for another?
Why would you want a
Committee
new
member.
person? I completely disagree with adding a new person at this stage. Personally, that's my vote, because I don't want to have to
Bring
Well,
somebody up.
we're
bring them
already-
all up to
but
speed
we're
on all
already
the
done
things
the
that we've
two
already done.
parks. We're already done the two
But we're
parks,
not, because we're still gonna have to support,
but we're starting, but committees change all the time.
I just,
And
that's my, you guys can
Okay.
just, that's my,
No,
my
and I
position.
think, my only reason to think that we even have that extra member is then our quorum.
our
I think
quorum
this
is
makes-
easier.
But I don't.
we've not had an
I mean,
issue.
Consider, yeah. And I just. I don't know.
Well, people can have other positions than what I just said, but for me, I don't want to have to re-go through everything. We've been meeting for months continuously, every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
like.
But I just think it
So
could
just
be
even just,
somebody else that brings expertise, like, and
Asking
just
it.
putting this out there. I was thinking John Cart's very vested in Volunteers Green with his trees. He brings a total different, you know, totally different view on Volunteers Green because of all the planting he's done there and the plan that he and his committee had, or his group. I don't know if they're just volunteers. But so,
yeah, I wasn't
It's not
thinking
our
of
job to,
making
like-
a new
yeah.
I wasn't thinking of a new member. I just wondered how much I should keep updating. for
And if
all the
she's
things
not
that
gonna
we do.
come.
Right, so.
so it's,
I mean,
And
but
it's
I don't think we need a new
ridiculous.
member. I think we asked John, I mean, there's somebody we say, we really want you to give us,
Yeah,
you've
but it's-
been helpful. give
Right,
us-
but it's
keep
not our
giving your
position
feedback,
to
but
pick
not a-
who's on the
No, correct.
committee.
Oh, no,
We
no,
have to
no,
put
I'm
them
not
in front
saying-
of
I'm
the
not
select board.
asking you to be on a committee. I'm saying, please, we need your input. We're
Input.
discussing this,
but even to have
as a committee
Mary
member.
on the committee list when it can't happen.
Yeah, it's,
it's kind of a waste of a position.
It is a waste of a position. I agree,
Initially, it wasn't.
exactly. But also with a quorum too. It would just be easier.
to have or not have.
To not have her on the committee.
But then you,
You have an open position, you would then.
well, and you don't usually have us even know.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah.
Yeah. You
Well, then we just let it be and it is as it is, but
But I mean, even to show up at that meeting and present the letter. It was ridiculous, but just a thought. Just a thought. All right, I will get this to Josh. We have our homework, so water. Oh my God, I've already brain dead John and Ben. I think that's it. Perfect.
I got some homework.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. So Tess, did anybody else have any questions? I really appreciate you doing all that homework with noise, mitigation and noise but I really in my heart think we're gonna be fine.
I do,
Well,
and I
I-
really think Melissa was just wanting us to be aware of that we might get those questions,
Right.
and now you have the answers.
Well, I just felt more comfortable after Mike and I went up.
Yeah,
And I also try to check when I went to Colchester, because that's open.
yep,
And the day I went, it was kind of a warm but yet windy day
yep.
at airport. And I could tell when I got out of the car, I thought, isn't anybody playing? Because I couldn't hear anything. And I walked closer and still didn't hear anything. So the whole noise thing it's nebulous at best. And I think that I think that this guy is an engineer. If he's out there selling it,
Mhm.
he has to make sure that he doesn't get any complaints. That, yeah, you said it was gonna be okay, but so he has to do it at maximum. At maximum.
And Kendra, on
This is-
behalf of the committee, thank you for all your computer skills.
After our meeting, do you know a friend of ours we had dinner with last
Should
night?
we,
Got his phone.
Adjourn the
and he
meeting?
Plays pickleball all the time, and he showed me this app that he has that shows all the pickleball places and
Yeah.
where he can reserve
Yeah.
a court.
I've heard of it, and there's another one. It wasn't playtime.
should we adjourn? Anybody make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second,
I second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And look at the clock,
Like
ladies.
all the Williston